What's neat about this course, and what was an immediate appeal to me, was in teaching the framework. It's really a toolkit. It's really a way to know what questions to ask, and a way to explore a particular decision that you're going to be faced with, that you would be faced with, that's a new setting, a new set of players. What we have in this course is a framework which helps you organize any decision, whether it's for a second grader, looking at whether to be honest or not, or an executive looking at whether or not to push into this gray area of the law. So it really becomes a tool, and it becomes second nature, particularly once our students have taught it to others, that helps them explore any new situation.
The reason I chose the decisions class is that it offers a unique perspective to ethics and the decision-making approach. It allows you to get out in the classroom and teach some school children. The fourth R, you have reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we wanted to teach these kids rationality so that they have a framework to make their decisions.
I like the fact that we would work with the younger kids to start with, and then we would take what we learned from that and then apply it in more of a ethical situation.
I felt that for me, not only from an ethics standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, I would gain a lot from, learning a model for decision making, as well as just practicing the skills of teaching that to other people.
I'm far more interested in the real ethical problems that businesses are facing right now, and that doesn't really get covered in the classes that I saw, nor in the reports that I heard of other classes.
It seemed like it was going to be an ethics class that was more along the lines of, let's go out and help people who can change the way that they make decisions, the way that they understand ethics, and then go and try to enlighten them, rather than wasting our time, in my opinion, talking about these abstract models.
I said to myself that this has to be an applicable course outside of this spectrum, Notre Dame. At the risk of offending, some courses here have not provided that sort of avenue. And that's exclusively why I did it. It just teaching decision making. I said that has to be something. There has to be something there that I can put in my pocket and walk out of here with.
Since I've been at Notre Dame, which is kind of seen as the bastion of ethics and decision-making for business schools, I'd taken 3 other courses, and although I got exposed to a lot of different philosophical views of how ethics operate, none of the courses really answered that fundamental question as to why are bad decisions being made. And so, obviously in the title it says teaching decision-making, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to learn exactly how people make decisions.
The traditional ethics courses really focus on theory. Here's of the different theories. It's more of a history lesson than an actual practical application. So it's a lot of, this is Kant, this is utilitarianism, going down the line of different ways, but it doesn't really lead you to how we can actually implement that and make better decisions.
A lot of the other ethics courses, in fact all of them that I've had at Notre Dame, were focusing more on the philosophical views of various camps of thought, if you will. But the flaw that I found in all of those is that they're great to look at a situation after the fact, but when I actually faced with the situation, there really wasn't a construct in my mind to say, well, am I going to decide to do something or not to do it because I'm going to do the greatest benefit for everyone.
I have only taken one other ethics course, and it was very reading intensive, very writing intensive, and the feedback that I got from that writing, and also the class interaction, I really wasn't satisfied with either.
I think the main problem with the way that they teach the ethics classes here is that I don't think it changes anyone's behavior. I think other than maybe making you more aware of different situations and different ethical dilemmas and maybe being more socially conscious or trying to push that on people, I don't think it would really change anyone's behavior, which I think is the main fault in the ethics program at Notre Dame.
But as far as it being practical, as far as it's giving me tools that I can walk away and apply, I haven't seen that happen. However, ethics has been woven into the rest of the curriculum in a rather interesting way, so that professors who are bringing up ethical situations in accounting have done an excellent job, for example. So it's just the ethics-specific classes I haven't really enjoyed very much.
We're required to take one in our first or second semester. What it does is it navigates the history of ethical thought through 2 schools of thought, Kantian and utilitarian John Stuart Mill approach. It's a great way to gain trivial knowledge should you be on Jeopardy and those 2 categories come up. there isn't a lot of functionality to it. There's not a lot of utility to it. There was some value with it. But once we went past 2 weeks of class, the value was no longer there, and it was becoming, if we're being candid here, you almost get the feeling that, I guess it's a 16-week course, so after 2 weeks, the remaining 14 weeks, you almost start to feel like, is this just so Notre Dame can trump themselves as an ethics school? That course it really didn't deposit anything in my bank account, if you will.
The class itself is based on a decision-making model, basically, which is essentially a framework for how you make decisions in everyday life, starting with basically your choices, then going all the way out to the goals that you want to create. And so the class started out with him teaching us this model and helping us understand how the model actually worked, and we took it and taught it to kids. My friend Scott and I taught it to second graders.
The point of the model is, and it's very subtle, it's very simple, but the point of the model is to help you think through hindsight before you get to it.
For example, one kid wanted to be a hockey player, professional hockey player, so we said, well, if you get in a fight on the playground and then you can't go to practice, it's going to hurt your career. So basically we said every choice you make ultimately helps you lead to a goal. And that was what we taught the kids. And then we brought it back into the classroom and said, okay, how about for business people? How about for graduate students? How do we make decisions out there in the business world as managers using this same framework?
Everybody had to kind of form an opinion, and that's the way we learned. We learned through everybody else's experiences and their perspectives, which benefited me, because I don't have all the answers, and I like to say other people think, and it's like, wow, that makes sense. I never thought about it that way. Rather than having the professor in the prior ethics courses just lecture on A, B, C, didn't really gain that much.
I think it's a very powerful tool not to just learn information, but then to have to teach it to someone else, because it shows a true mastery of the knowledge base that you're trying to teach. And so by having the opportunity to teach it to children, not only did it community service space and teach them something, but it really taught you, the individual, more about the model and how it worked, and really kind of introspectively reflecting on why you make decisions.
Standing up in front of a room of 25 second graders and having to control the classroom as well as convey what you're trying to get across to them without speaking over their heads was much more difficult than I had expected. It was a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed it. But at the end of the hour that I spent with the class, let's just say it was a learning experience for me.
The teaching component of this course came first, and it seemed at first juxtaposed to everything else that was going to be occurring in the latter half of the semester. And you said to yourself, how do these two things relate? What actually came to pass was an amazing experience with kids. It was absolutely worthwhile. What it did was it made you learn the model that Professor Reynolds was teaching. Not understand it in a classroom setting, not be able to write it back down on a piece of paper and hand it to him, not be able to answer the questions and the specifications that you anticipated he needed to hear. It made you learn it. If that teaching component was not part of this course, at the conclusion, where we are today, I'd be left with maybe 10 cents on the dollar of what I have.
I got a lot more out of it than I really thought I would. I was a little bit skeptical of how you could take a simple model that you teach to elementary school children and actually apply that to complicated business situations. But I've really realized that when you tie it back to your value systems, it becomes much easier to make decisions.
I felt like in the other ethics classes, there was more of a right answer, and all the students would say, they try to say exactly what the teacher wanted them to say. And in this class, it was more, what do you really think, and why do you think it? And it was more of a give and take, and I feel like I get a lot more out of that kind of approach than there's a right answer, wrong answer.
I think we all recognize that there is a significant advantage to approaching ethics with the perception that there is a tool that we can use in our own lives. And in our traditional ethics classes, we really look at it as kind of a historical view of ethics. And that's fine, and that's great background, and it sometimes raises some interesting questions, but it's just so much more advantageous to have something that makes you evaluate your own values. So it's a much more personal thing, and I think ethics really fundamentally are personal. I think that everything that we do boils down to a personal choice, what's going to serve us best. And if you take ethics from the perception of decision making, you get at that, whereas you don't with the traditional models.
This course, compared to other ethics courses at Notre Dame, is far and away much better. When using the decision-making model, the gray areas are a little bit easier to talk about and actually try to work to a solution.
These guys benefit a number of ways that that will help them professionally, that will help them as people.
There is a way to teach ethics that actually gives you an action plan, actually gives you a way to evaluate your own ethics, evaluate your own goals, make changes, and proceed with a framework for making decisions that you can actually apply to real situations.
I've only taken one other ethics class here at Notre Dame. That class, I don't really remember anything. I remember enjoying it, but I don't really remember getting anything out of it and being able to apply it. Whereas this decision-making class, I can actually apply it.
This approach gives you a tangible way to think of ethics and to make your decisions in your life in an ethical manner. It's not theoretical, it's not abstract. It gives you some framework that you can actually use and that you can actually apply.
This is a great way for people to explore in a kind of a structured format their own values in decision making.
Here's some tools that you can use when you go out and you have to make a tough business decision or a tough life decision. This course is much more valuable than the other ethics courses.
This is not asking you, what should you do? This is asking you, what would you do?
It's going to equip you with tools that you can use outside of these walls, guaranteed. It was invaluable. I really don't have any other word for it.